Hello and welcome to the second part of our course Introduction for Managerial Problem Solving, the assessment strategy. In the next few minutes I'm going to talk to you about how the assessment strategy works and what you can expect. Basically I have a three-step assessment plan. First of all, I asked you to conduct a bunch of simulated problem solving exercises in your own time. I will then assess these for you out of a mark out of 10. You then take these three simulations and apply them to a case study, which I will post shortly. In that case study, you have to solve an authentic management problem from a real-world situation that I have rewritten and de-identified. That basically means it's a real problem that currently exists and had a solution, and you have to provide a solution to it. Now, what I'll do then is mark that based on your ability to identify, classify, and organize your approach, and to create a known solution. That then will lead to some learning outcomes for you, and I want to capture those in reflections. So let's go through each one of these items now, and I'll explain exactly what I'm expecting. First of all, an overview. There are three major assessment items. Really, it's two, but I've staggered it so that you do a little bit each week, or if you're an intensive student, you do one or two in the first session, and then the last one in the final session. In the first part, you've got a problem-solving assignment. What it is a case study of an organization where you are a manager. And what you have to do is solve a bunch of problems given to you by your boss. Your boss has created this situation where you've been given a set of tasks. The first one is a simple task. The second one is a more complicated task, and the last one is a wicked problem. So the skill here is learning to identify what the problem is and coming up with the appropriate solution. Sometimes you'll use creativity, sometimes you'll use a heuristic. And I'll give you explicit instructions on what you're to do with that. To help you answer the assignment, we've broken it down into simulated learning experiences, of which there are three. So it's the same case study for problem-solving assignment and simulated learning exercises. Online, you'll find a document called Case Study in the assessment folder. You can read that or listen to it, and that will enable you to understand what this case study is all about. When you get that case study, you can automatically begin to plan out ways of solving the problem. In the first simulated exercise, I'll ask you to apply the waterfall approach to solving the problem. In the second one, I'll ask you to apply the concept-driven approach to solving a problem, or the engagement approach, which is my approach. And in the last one, I'm going to ask you to identify and select from the wicked problem a possible set of solutions that may or may not work, and to evaluate them. This is a different skill. And this skill is largely to do with your ability to recognize how deep and interconnected a problem actually is. This is what people do at the top of an organization, and it's what we really need to get good at in this century. Lastly, I'm going to ask you to capture your learning in a problem-solving reflection exercise. This will be a bunch of questions which I'll ask you to answer, and it'll be about 1,000 words. The problem-solving assignment is about 2,000 words, and the simulated learning exercises are 30%. So as you can see, 80% of this course is aligned with real-world problem solving. Now at universities we do live in the real world. We're not in some kind of meta-reality. We do actually exist alongside regular people, and universities are managed by people. And as such, universities are probably more difficult to manage than most private enterprises because there are no standard rules or structures to follow. Universities are basically structured anarchies. So, what am I saying? We have a lot of experience in this, and we can help you along the way. But the actual exercise here is one of a private enterprise, and it's one that will take some time. The case itself is based in a real-world situation in which I worked, so you should be able to get something out of it. In the last piece, I want you to capture those lessons and put them into a reflective journal. Now, you take that with you when you leave the course, and it will help you to remember what you've learned as you've gone through. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the simulated learning experiences. What you do is you work on a problem, and I'll give it to you in the online sessions, in the assessment folder. The first thing you do is you'll spend allocated class time online, not in class, so everybody does it at the same time in the same space, in the wiki, talking about the course learning experiences. Now, what is the first one? Well, the first one asks you to craft a solution on a problem. You spend time thinking about it, you actually have to do it, and you have to submit one page that shows me that you understand how to solve the problem. If you don't, I will hand it back to you and ask you to give an explanation as to why it doesn't work, or how I think it's not going to work. In this situation, I play the role of facilitator, so the feedback you get from me will feed forward into the second part of the assignment. So while the first one's about setting up a plan, or a timeline, or a budget, or a simple problem, the second one is about how to manage something more difficult, like stakeholder relationships. The third one is about how to manage a wicked problem. So the goal is to help you understand the process by applying it, reflecting on it, and learning from it. So the feedback is not designed to be negative or critical, but the feedback is designed to help you see how you can solve the problem better next time. So it's designed to give you capabilities and skills and to reflect on those skills and capabilities. So you'll submit one page to me at a set deadline before you hand in the second simulated exercise. Then you'll hand in the second simulated exercise, which is managing a difficult problem, or a linked political issue. How do you manage political issues? How do you manage stakeholders? How do you deal with critical problems? And the third one is how do you recognize and categorize a wicked problem? And what do you do about it? Do you come up with creative solutions, or what do you do? And we'll get a little bit into design when we talk about wicked problems, but not much, because this is not really that kind of course. So in other words, research shows that it's a much richer learning experience through simulated learning. And the idea is that as I simulate learning, I grow and things go from there. I actually learn more as a result. Simulations, you can work in teams or individual, and I've decided to leave that up to you. Because the student numbers in this course are capped at 50, online that's not the same, it might be more. You can work in teams, that's up to you. You're not at an advantage if you work in teams, and you're not at an advantage if you don't. But if you want to work with someone you feel that has got some capabilities, that's a good lesson in problem solving. Now here's the trick. You are all collaborating with each other, because I've designed the learning environment so you have to post your answers to the exercises so the entire class sees them. Now what's the purpose in that? Well, you have a knowledge repository which you can take with you, which becomes something that's good and that will help you to develop as a problem solver in the future. So you have 3 problems: a tame problem, a difficult problem, and a wicked problem. You get 10% for each exercise, and the goal is to get you to practice the theory and put it to work. All problem-solving theory is applied. You'll then hand in a 1-page pitch to me and what your preferred solution is, and you will have one goal and will be assessed on how well you meet that goal. Those goals then feed into the final report, which I'm going to talk about on this slide. You have to write a strategy report on how to handle the case problem. So you've been given 3 objectives by your bosses, and the first one, the second one, and the third one all have to be explained in a report. You have to come up with a plan to solve the problem. This report should be no more than 2,000 words, and it should be based on the findings of your simulations. It has to be business English, easy to read, and marks will be allocated on the eloquence of your solutions and the ideas for change and the roadmap going forward. The assignment is based on the idea that you do the simulated learning exercises, you then reflect on those and turn that into a framework for changing the business. So I'm actually going to ask you for a strategy to fix this business. There's no bigger problem or more wicked problem than strategy or policy development. You will be assessed on your ability to provide the most creative and authentic solution to this authentic problem. There is a handout which explains this coming, if you haven't seen it already. If not, it'll be there soon, that talks about what this assignment is about. I suggest you read that and yammer me any questions that you may have. Lastly, once you've done the simulated learning experiences and reflected on them and put them into a problem-solving report, you will have learned something. Now, reflective essays generally tend to be a bit tricky because it's asking you to reflect on your learning experience in the course. Now, this is not reflecting on the quality of the course material or the quality of my teaching. This is reflecting on what did you learn by doing these exercises. A lot of people, when they come to university, don't realize that you're here to learn and you're here of your own accord. So in the reflections part, what I'm going to ask you to do is to capture that experience. And I've designed a couple of questions that you have to answer, and I'll give you about 1,000 words to write down what you think. So for example, let's just say you did the simulated learning experiences and you learned that even tame problems have many alternatives. You write that down. Or let's say you did the last one and you realize wicked problems have no structure. You write that down and you explain what it means. The more you've learned, the more you'll be able to say. The less you've learned, the less you'll be able to say. So the idea is not to repeat what the course profile says or what I've said, but to put in your own words what it is that you grew up out of this course. I'm particularly interested in what skills did you get, not what theory did you learn. I'm not too interested in that because theory about problem solving is thin on the ground. Because most of it's applied, right? And the theory that is there is based on action research and action learning, or methodologies, if you like. So I want to know what you learned and what skills and capabilities you developed throughout this course. Lastly, if you have any questions about the assessment material, please bring them to the face-to-face touch base session on the first day of the class, or send them to the Yammer group and I'll answer them. Again, think of this as a singular learning experience. As you go through the course website, you'll see I've designed it to be like a book, so you can open up a link and you can play around with that and write your comments and exercises so everybody can see them. Now, I know that may be an affront to some of you and you may find that confronting. There is no such thing as stealing knowledge here. You are not competing, you are collaborating. And what will separate the sheep from the goats in this course really is your ability to fill out the reflective learning exercise. All right, I'm happy to take questions, so send them away. Thank you.